There's plenty of room here, so if you want to tighten up, you can.
Yeah, they're going. All right, let's get started. We got our last demo, and I sure am glad y'all made it here today. I'd like to welcome everybody to Gettysburg. I'm very, very, very lucky today to be able to introduce to you Battery M of the 2nd U.S. Artillery. It's going to be performing here today. More about them in just a second. A couple of rules, especially for the little fellows that are out. Been marching around with the soldiers today, possibly.
Yeah.
A little bit. Please do not go past this sturdy barricade.
Yes.
That has been erected at great expense for your safety here today. All right? Please use common sense. Watch your ears. Watch, what else?
Right here.
Oh,
Right, Emma. Aubrey.
come on out. I'm sorry, I had somebody else to get. I thought y'all parked or were long gone. All right, for the safety message, we shall now hear the safety message. Just start with the barricade.
Don't go past the sturdy barricade. If you have sensitive hearing, you want to cover your ears. If you have hearing aids, you want to turn them down. If you have smaller children, you want to cover their ears. If you have pets, you want to hold them back.
Otherwise, what are we doing here, Aubrey?
Use common sense and don't act like an idiot.
Okay. Use common sense and don't act like an idiot. All right? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. I didn't teach her that part. Especially y'all down on that end, do watch your hearing. It is loud. Do not underestimate this gun. For some reason, this 3 inch is exceptionally loud. Give me 1 second, all right?
Okay.
This is, all right, you want to introduce them? Battery M 2nd U.S.
Battery M 2nd U.S.
All right, what does it cost the American taxpayer?
No, but nothing.
Why does it cost the American taxpayer nothing, Aubrey?
Because they are on their own money, own time, and own gas.
Own money, own time, own gas. That's why you got a free program today. How about a round of applause for the volunteers? You're doing good. Yes. All right, they'll give you fair warning when they're going to start to shoot, okay? Thank y'all for coming out.
Okay, welcome everybody, and we want to thank you for coming out to Gettysburg National Park today. We are part of a reenactment group. We like to talk about history and show you how this stuff works. It's one thing to drive around the park, see all these cannons, but how many of you actually got to see one fire before? Yeah, a couple of you. Okay, that's pretty cool. Well, by the end of this 10-15 minute time period, y'all can raise your hand. So anyway, first of all, I wanted to share with you that Battery M 2nd U.S. Artillery was not in the 3-day battle here at Gettysburg, but we were over across US 15 over here in East Cavalry Field in reserve and in recovery, because a couple days prior we were in a skirmish at Hanover, Pennsylvania, and therefore we were recovering and in reserve in anticipation that something was going to happen here, which it did, obviously. So anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to start off. One thing I want to mention too, that when we were over in East Cavalry Field, our commander, believe it or not, we were under the command of one Lieutenant George Armstrong Custer. Anybody ever heard of him before? Yeah. Well, he was a young lieutenant at the time when Gettysburg happened. He was here. So anyway, so we're going to go ahead and fire this cannon, and then I'll explain how things work, and then we'll fire the cannon one more time, and that should be. And after we fire that cannon the second time, and we declare the gun safe, well, you can come on across this barrier, come down to the gun and talk to the people that are on, the artillerists that are on this cannon, take some photos, with, whatever you want to do. And if you're so inclined, want to do this and try us out, be a reenactor, well, we can talk to you about that too. Anyway, with that said, Steve. Battery! Counter infantry fire! Load! Counter infantry! Counter infantry!
Furious. They loaded it up.
Advance the route. Okay, he's about to fire.
Gun number 1 is ready. Gun number 1, prepare to fire. Fire!
That there is the sound of field artillery, and for some of us more on this end, we're also going to smell the smoke of battle going on. And if you're really lucky, you can taste the smoke because it tastes a little like sulfur. Well, anyway, I want to start off and talk about the uniform a little bit. What do you notice that's unique about our uniforms?
Blue. Red trim.
They're wool.
The trim is in red, which is the color of artillery. Infantry would be blue, and cavalry would be a yellow gold. And those colors are used in today's military as well. That hasn't changed since its inception in our military. One of the things I'd like to do too is introduce you to our gun and the positions, and I'll talk about the gun drill for a moment. So we're going to start off with our gunner. Our gunner is Corporal Ron, and he's in charge of the cannon and its operations and its command. He aims the gun and gives direction to the crew, and he calls out the fire mission. Number 1, he's in front of the gun. He has the sponge rammer. He will wet the sponge, run it down the tube to make sure that the embers are put out with the water on the sponge. We don't want to reload the gun with powder if we got a burning ember, because it'll make your day. Okay, he will also ram the powder charge and the projectile in the gun as well. Number 2 is Private Engine. He's got a tool called the worm. After it is fired, he goes down, gives it a twist, got a big corkscrew in the end of it, and hopefully he'll extract anything that's unburnt in the tube, like the powder bag, usually made of wool at that time. Today it's aluminum foil. Number 3, Private Fish. He's got this inexpensive glove on. It only has 1 digit called the thumb. They couldn't afford the other 4 fingers. So anyway, he controls the vent hole with that special thumb, and he also pricks the powder charge and also helps aim the gun. Number 4, Private Neil. He's going to prime the gun and fire the gun. Number 5, he's back here on the limber box. He's going to transport rounds from the limber box to the gunner for inspection, and then forward up to number 2, which number 2 will take the rounds and the powder and put it into the gun. Number 6 and 7 are on the box. we have Private Jim, we have Private Rich Sr., and they're going to prepare rounds as that are called for, and if in the heat of battle, one of them may also run rounds up to the front of the gun. And then we have Private Ted here. He's in charge of the horses. Unfortunately, we don't use horses here, but he manages to take care of the horses, puts the harnesses on them, feeds them their oats, shovels manure, whatever the case might be. Well, not only that, he'll have 2 or 3 of those guys managing the teams of horses. The Union had 6 horses pulling this rig, and the Confederates only had 4 horses pulling it. And that's mainly because there was a horse shortage in the South. We were fortunate to have more horses. Altogether, this whole assembly will be over 3,000 pounds being pulled by a team of 6 horses. And the horse paths and the rough terrain, it took every bit of that. This limber box will hold about 50 rounds and the powder charges, so there's over 500 pounds in that limber box alone. A few things about this gun. This gun was invented and made in 1855, about 5 years before the Civil War started. And they were made in Phoenixville, Pennsylvania. Anybody in the Philadelphia area here today?
I'm from Phoenixville.
You're from Phoenixville. Okay, that's where these things were made. The bore of it is 3 inches in diameter. It's made out of wrought iron. The tube length is about 73 inches, and the weight of the gun tube is about 900 pounds. And when we fire it with live ammunition, it takes 1 pound of powder, and it's a 10-pound projectile. Now, you've probably seen on that show called The Pink Panther where they take a cannonball, light it, throw it down the tube. That doesn't happen. In fact, the ammunition fired out of this is more shaped like a 16-ounce beer can. They're cylinder in shape, and we'll be showing those to you in a moment. But this gun is highly effective, or very accurate at 1,000 yards. There's a barn back here, over here by the tree. Some of you might be able to see it, others may not. But we literally can shoot it through the window of that barn and it's that accurate. And at 2,000 yards, it's highly effective. So, as long as we can see our target, we can shoot at it. During Pickett's charge, they were putting 2 to 3 rounds, they fired 2 to 3 rounds a minute. Now that was shortcutting a lot of the process you saw out here, but desperate times call for desperate measures. But normally, you know, around a minute is a high rate of fire anyway. Okay. Now, our government bought 1,000 of these guns to be made prior to the Civil War, and they were employed here at Gettysburg as well as other locations. General Meade, his artillery portion of his command, 41% of his artillery was these 3-inch ordnance guns. The other 2 guns that you will see here in the battlefield are called a Parrott. It has a wide band around the back end of the gun called the breech. And then if you look down here, you see the green cannons. That's called a Napoleon. And those are a bronze cannon that's been oxidized. That's why they turn green. So let's look at the projectiles that we fire.
I get to do something now.
Okay, this projectile, if you show them the front there, kid, it's got a fuse port in it. It can be unscrewed and interchange a percussion fuse with a time fuse. A time fuse would be something like, looked like a cigarette, and it was made of paper mache and had a propellant in the middle of it. And we had charts, and it had graduation marks on that fuse. And depending on how long you wanted it to travel, we cut the fuse, if you will. And how it was lit is when the cannon fired, the flame from the cannon would ignite that fuse because the flames would go around the front of the projectile. On the back of the projectile, you'll see this brass cup. when the explosion occurs in back of that cup will expand into the rifling of the gun, and thus giving it a spin when it goes out the gun tube. Now I'm sure somebody's thrown a football here before, right? Yeah? So what kind of pass do we throw a football? A spiral. Well, the same thing here. The spiral gives it stability when it's in trajectory. Same thing with this artillery. In fact, I think the football got that idea from an artillery shell. I'm sure some of these quarterbacks throw about as hard as that artillery shell comes out of a cannon too. So anyway, that's one kind of. This next kind, if you show the front of it, this has a point detonating fuse on it. So it's got to strike something hard for it to explode. In the battlefield, there was many of these rounds that were picked up that were unexploded at one time. And the big reason is probably because it came out and it tumbled end over end and never had the opportunity to strike something hard enough to cause it to explode. And they found that these fuses were fully functional, but it just didn't have the opportunity to have impact in the right place. This next round is what we call bolt. It is made for busting things up. For example, maybe a brick wall, a building, or something of that nature. If you go down to the Trossel farm, in the gable of that brick building, you'll find a big hole. It was caused by one of these back in the Civil War. That hole still exists today.
Right,
This-
10 minutes.
Huh?
Right.
Okay. This projectile is a canister round. And they were putting 2 and 3 of these into the gun tube during Pickett's charge as the infantry advanced. Now you got to bear in mind, this is basically a big shotgun shell. And when it goes out the tube, it spreads shot. Now, think of the infantry, they're shoulder to shoulder marching next to each other, and they get hit with one of these, they all go down like dominoes. Okay. So, to explain how the gun works, once this powder bag is shoved down the gun tube, my finger's going to represent the vent hole. Number 3 is going to poke the powder charge with it and out. Number 4 will take a primer and insert it in that vent hole, and take his lanyard and hook it into there, the friction primer, and he pulls on the fire command. The wire comes out, causing a spark. Just think of it as a big firecracker in a metal tube, and it shoots a spark down in the powder bag, which causes the explosion. So, just to give you an idea, a gun battery would be 6 cannons or 4 cannons, but typically we're 6 cannons. And how this would work is if you had 6 cannons, you have 2 guns on the left, 2 guns on the right, 2 guns in the center. Thus, left section, center section, right section. And each one of those sections was commanded by a lieutenant. And then these 3 lieutenants answered to the battery commander at the rank of captain. And he oversees all of this. Now in my case, my name's Major Mark, and I'm a brigade or field officer, and I would be working with the command of maybe 3 gun batteries or more, sometimes called a brigade. And I would be taking commands from the general or the artillery chief of staff or the colonel, and sending messages out to these battery commanders of what they wanted to do. So that's kind of how the command structure would work. And we all operated basically with voice commands or a hand signal of some sort, because we didn't have any kind of electronic communications. I mean, the biggest electronic communication at the time was a telegraph. So we didn't have those out in the field either. So everything was basically voice commands. So it's a very structured command signal that is used. So it's kind of like a buzzword. So you don't have to use a whole lot of things. So with that said, let's walk through a dry drill, and then we'll shoot the cannon on the second one.
Battery load.
What was the average charge for a canister shot? Dry fire.
Dry fire.
Pounds of gunpowder?
I popped between 2 pounds.
That's the round. Narration.
Yes, I'm sorry. So what he's done is he's run the round forward, and they've loaded the gun. Now they're ramming the charge into the gun. Now they're preparing to aim the gun right now. No optics here. It's all naked eye and a tool hanging on the back of the gun barrel. So now that he has sighted the gun, he's waiting for the next command, that buzzword.
Ready.
Ready is the buzzword, tells number 3 and 4 basically to go in. They take the pick, punch the charge to the vent hole, and then they put the primer into the vent hole and hook the lanyard to it.
Gun number 1, prepare to fire. Fire. Boom.
And that's how it would work. Now they're going to go into the next fire mission, which will be a live fire. And at the conclusion of that, once the gun has been declared safe, you may go down to the gun on my say-so and talk with everybody. Go ahead.
Battery load. Counter artillery fire.
Load. Counter artillery fire.
Counter artillery fire.
That's the round. Ready. Gun number 1, prepare to fire. Fire.
So what do you think?
Wow.
Anybody want to become an artillerist?